Howdy, folks. What is going on this fine Friday evening? How is everyone doing? We're joined here with AR Guns 1776 and Eagle Eye Shooting, Kenny. And we are talking hand loading, precision, and reloading. The differences, what we try to aim for in each thing, and what everything really means, so that you can get a basic understanding on what's going on, and with your particular load development. So hand loading. Usually hand loading is you're using all new components and you're loading ammunition for a particular rifle, and your or firearm, I should say. It goes for pistols as well. But usually when we're talking about precision hand loading, we're talking about rifles and some long range shooting. So Kenny, precision rifle loading, what is that to you as far as how far in the weeds you go into with your rifle loading? And then what we'll do is we'll ask AR the same question, and then we'll welcome the crowd to the show.
Correct, yeah. So when it comes to hand loading, the main two terms you're going to hear is consistencies and how you do things, and variables. The two goals of hand loading are to eliminate variables and maximize your consistency or accuracy. And I always tell folks that everybody's got a different goal in mind when it comes to how accurate their rifle or their load needs to be. Some of those goals that are set are a little bit, I say, overachieved for what they need to do. So, for instance, if all you have is a 600-yard range and you want to be able to hit the target that you have at your shooting club, well, how big is your target? And if it's a 12-inch by 12-inch plate at 600 yards, well, that's a 2 MOA target. So when guys are saying I need to make my rifle a half MOA consistent shooter, well, technically you're overachieving your goal when all you really need to have is a 1 MOA shooter. So a lot of components and time are wasted, in my opinion, and kind of, I guess, overemphasized for that person's shooting, I guess, technique, or just person's shooting that they're trying to achieve. So for me, obviously, I'm trying to get the smallest groups with what I got. And you can spend thousands of dollars on a custom rifle, and those that follow my channel, and you can definitely see that I do make things work with just your factory rifle. So the hand loading aspect of it really helps out, gets you down range. And for me, my goal is to be able to hit 1,000 yards on that 1 MOA target, which would be a 10-inch or 11-inch target. That's what I would say. Set a goal basically with the hand loading. Start going for that.
Yeah,
we're having a hard time hearing you. Michael asked me, "Hey, are you hearing the echo?" Yes, I hear it, Michael.
You should be able to boost my mic if you need to there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Kenny's in his
vehicle. Kenny's on a phone right now. Kenny's gonna be on his computer really soon and on his own Wi-Fi. So we're just gonna have to deal with it for a few minutes here. Kenny's just getting off work and coming home. He got a call. So AR, what is precision hand loading to you? What do you consider precision?
Precision to me is buying. I'll keep it simple. I started out, I bought a Type S bushing die for $308. I bought 5 bushings. I think almost $80 for 5 bushings, so I could vary my my neck tension. I don't shave neck, so I basically pull neck size. I think I'm echoing, but
yeah, I got a lot of echo coming off of your mic.
So me, if I reload 308, I'll typically use the bushing dies at this point. I don't use the Lee system like you do, or I think Kenny may use the Lee system too, the size of the neck. I use a Redding Type S, and I don't Right now, I don't do the neck sizing or shaving, but I may end up doing the neck turning. I meant turning, not shaving. I am going to do that eventually. Probably get a K. What is it? K&M. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think. Yeah, I may get their kit and do like MacMan does. But so I load. I check concentricity. As long as I got a good round, very little concentricity, and I can get it actually better than max grade. And I actually check max grade occasionally. I have in the past. If I can get it really good, to me that's good enough for match accurate shooting for what I do. But one man's precision is another man's precision, and his may be a little different because we're all different how we do the process. So uh, right now, that's my point. I don't have a neck turner, which I may get soon, but I do use the Type S, and I would consider the Lee. I just don't use it at this point. I got so much money tied up in my bushings for 308. I got a ton of them over there, right here in the thing here. I should show them. Matter of fact, let me get them here in a minute, you all. I'll show you these bushings. I bought a bunch of them. Actually, probably a little more than I need, but it's good to buy them that way. Depending on one manufacturer's brass will be thin, a little thinner. One manufacturer's brass will be a little thicker. So I bought like right here. I got a 3.336 and 308 bushing by Redding. I got I'm just pulling this out random. I got a .334 bushing by Redding Type S. Goes in a Type S die. I've got a .332, which is starting to get into thin Remington brass. If I'm not mistaken, Remington brass tends to be a lot thinner than the Lapua. And I got a .333. That's quite a bit of bushings, and each is about $17 a piece. Plus, I got free shipping and no tax back in the day. So I got three. I got 3, 4. I got 5 of them. Some people only buy 3. So but you all can see that it is a little bushing right there.
Here, hold on, let me blow you up.
Okay. Now this system only works with a Redding Type S bushing die, and it's also the Type S is also a full body sizing die. It won't size the neck, but it'll size the body and bump the shoulder back. So you can take the innards out and basically the bushing out and just use it as a body die. But that's what I do on 308 at this point. And I check it with a concentricity gauge, which is all I got. I don't have 2 of them. Some people do, like Echo. I wished I had 2, but I eventually will. But at this point, that's what I do. But it depends on how anal you want to get, OCD. I shouldn't use that word. How OCD you want to be in your precision. What's good enough for you. But I'm picky too. I like a really good, hardly no concentricity. I like the neck size and the proper tension and all that.
Right. There's usually there's a couple rules of thumb when you're talking about sizing necks. One is if you're dealing with a match grade rifle, one that the barrel has been custom cut and chambered to match your particular brass and your particular bullet you're using. In other words, setting the free bore for the actual bullet you're loading. Like say I'm loading, what do I have? Okay. What we were saying is Sierra. Let's see here. I'll pop on the.
Yeah, Match Kings are good.
Yeah, these are Sierra Match King 308 diameter. 168 grain.
That's the standard, gold standard to me.
Yeah. This is basically your gold standard, like AR's talking about. The other is Burger. A lot of people use Burger bullets. They live by them. They die by them. They're a little bit more pricey. They're about 20 cents per bullet, cheap, more expensive than the Sierras. And they seem to be a little bit more accurate from bullet to bullet than the Sierras. Wow. But I have had not any problem shooting Sierra Match King. Certain rifle barrels will not like certain bullets. That's just the way it is. You will buy a barrel, put it on a rifle, and you will find out that your favorite bullet does not shoot for anything in this barrel. And that's just the luck of the draw, because the very next barrel in that line could like that bullet. Barrels are very specifically, there's some type bullets they'll shoot good. Some bullets they'll shoot absolutely amazing. And it's up to you and your load development to figure out what bullet, what powder, and what primer, and what piece of brass that rifle is going to shoot consistently. When you're talking accuracy, you're talking consistent from round to round. Kenny was hitting on this when he was on before. When you start getting your overall spread, but from bullet to bullet, and with your standard deviation being low in the single digit numbers, you are going to see better grouping on targets. No matter if you found a good load or not, it will still be on target in a matter of speaking in a group. You'll see the bullets start to conform to an actual group, and they're just not all over the target. And as you work on each step, maybe it's changing your powder charge. Maybe it's setting your bullet at different depths. I always try with 308 to stick with a standard powder charge that I've found works in many a 308 rifles that I've shot it in, with a particular powder, with a particular projectile. And that's where I like to start. And with the 308 Winchester, that's with Varget at like 43.6 grains, and Sierra Match King 168 grain bullet sitting at about 15 to max 20 thousandths off of the lands and grooves. So with that combination, I know that's going to be a good starting point for me to find accuracy in just about any 308 rifle.
That's all I got, guys. Send me some. I'm kidding.
Send me some.
I'm serious. Bought it in 2013.
Listen to him. So that's the thing with the precision rifle. It really depends on what you're trying to do, because one man's precision with a 30-30 lever action here in Florida shooting 100 yards is different than from a fella that's living out in western Wyoming, where he can shoot 1,500 yards without a problem, because he's got the ability in the landscape there to shoot that far. Where we're hunting in
You better give up that 30-30 out west if he wants to go 1,500 yards.
Oh yeah,
just joking.
Yeah, 30-30 guns are popular everywhere. They really are. But they have always been a carbine type rifle, even with the 22 and 24 inch octagon barrels. You're still looking at a cartridge that is not going to get you much further than a couple hundred yards. I mean, at best, it's just the overall bullet stability, because of the way the bullets are for the 30-30. They're a round nose. They're not as sleek and lean, so their BC is not as good. They're not designed for long range use. They're designed for about 150 yards. For that really doesn't fall into what we're talking about precision rifles. But what I was saying was, the reason why I brought it up was, if a fella is shooting 3 inches at 100 yards with a 30-30, or 2 inches at 100 yards with a 30-30, that may be all the precision he's looking to get out of that rifle. Therefore, his quest for precision is much different than mine. What I want to look is for one hole at 100 yards that is no bigger than like an inch and a half. You know what I'm saying? And that's an inch, and that's over an MOA shooting. You know, that's an inch and a half at 100 yards is 1.5 MOA. And basically, I'm comfortable with that with my sight. And but with somebody with the same rifle might be able to shoot, you know, a 1/2 inch group with it. That is just my ability at that range, because I'm honest with myself. I'm not going to be a match grade shooter with my eyesight. And a lot of people will, this is another thing, and AR will agree with me. A lot of guys chase the rabbit hole. They'll jump in the rabbit hole feet first, and they'll just keep going. And it's like a bottomless pit. They'll keep just spending out money after money after money, and in trying to improve their accuracy, when a lot of times they need to spend some time with an instructor on how to shoot a rifle correctly. And that will actually give them more improvement than all the hand loading and all the custom features on his or her rifle and the entire thing. So AR, what is precision to you, brother? What do you consider precision?
Maybe a 1/2 inch at 100 yards, depending on the rifle I buy, because you know how rifles are from the factory. They can vary. I already stated this, how I reload. I use the bushing, Redding Type S bushing system. I eventually going to probably turn the necks a little bit. MacMan does the necks. He's got a gun, Precision. He shoots, he says, bullet into bullet. But I've never had a rifle that good yet. I did have a Tikka a while back, but I sold it. So basically, I don't do any neck turning or bullet sorting. I just load and get concentricity at a very bare minimum, hopefully 0 or just a hair over that, you know, on a concentricity gauge, and I'm good. And I've never shot Burger. I've only did the match Sierra. So
yeah,
and I don't have enough of powder. I've been storing that powder, Michael. Yeah.
That's
you load a few rounds in a. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk on you.
It's only a pound of powder, so if you start loading 308, you're gonna be out of powder soon.
Yeah, right now, because of the shortages and bullets and stuff like that, sometimes you have to wait a little bit, but you know, that's just more or less you're gonna have to keep shopping around and get yourself a supply of bullets and a few different powders. You don't need 10 different powders. You can get by with using 1 or 2 powders and working up multiple loads and multiple bullets and multiple seating depths. I have found that once you get with a decent powder, and you can look and see what most people are using, say for 308 Winchester. There is about 3 powders that they use for 308 Winchester that everybody's familiar with as far as for shooting an accurate load. Varget is one of them.
That will work.
With specific bullet weight, like 168 grain. You look at 3031, does really well with 168 grain bullets. You've got basically, I said Varget, 3031, 8208 XBR works very well. Basically, the 308, there are so many bullets available for the 308 diameter. I think it's one of the most produced bullets in America. Oh, hey, Mr. Eagle, what's going on, brother?
Hopefully this setup works. Is my microphone okay and everything?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm on a laptop, so I made it home.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
So basically, Eagle, we were going over just one man's precision to another man's precision varies, and what a guy with a 30-30 down here in Florida shooting 100 yards is looking for precision might be something totally different from someone with a 308 long distance type rifle, or just somebody that has a 308 bolt gun that's using it as varmint control on his ranch for hogs and coyotes and whatever.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to hint on earlier was everybody's term of what a precision hand loads all differs because of where they live and where they shoot. So what one man, exactly what you're saying, when one man's considers precision, which is only 400 yards, they don't need to do all the crazy neck turning and all that crap that we do for long range or extreme long range. However, the information that's shared is still great information to learn because that is something you could pass along to anybody. So, you know, like for instance, here's a typical Lee 223, and honestly, though I don't show it on my channel a lot, do a lot of cast bullets. I cast a lot of bullets and I shoot a lot of cast bullets, and this is my way of practicing my AR to be proficient, and is definitely capable out to 500 yards. So I have no problem with this little Lee 223 bullet doing that.
Oh, okay. So you're shooting lead out of a 223 at 500 yards.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
And that's what I was trying to say. Like, okay, so at 500 yards, my target is a 24 by 24 target. So that's technically a 3 MOA target. So when guys are setting a goal in mind for precision or what they consider a precision hand load, and their goal is half MOA or better, it's technically not really needed. When my terms as far as an accurate rifle is an 1 MOA or better. That's all I ask for. With a 1 MOA or better, you could be competitive in the competition side of shooting, or you could just have total confidence of you making your shot on whatever varmint or whatever a game you're trying to hunt. So in today's world, everybody's kind of overachieving that goal of trying to get that ultimate accuracy. And there's limitations on the platforms you use with stock rifles, and there's things you gain by going with a custom rifle if you're trying to go that route with the ultimate precision. So the one thing that we could probably touch upon is with the hand loading aspect of it, it's all about eliminating variables and getting your round as tight fitting and best as possible. But one thing that's overlooked is the chamber of the rifle, because all of these reloading dies that are full length size, like the typical Lee full length size and die, they're all cut to a SAMI spec. However, the rifles that we shoot in production, for instance, you go with let's say a Savage 110 or Savage 10 rifle, or for instance, a Remington production rifle, those barrels are cut in production, meaning they're not going to get the best alignment on the reamer. They're not going to get the ultimate precision and tight fitting of a chamber. So when you full length size your brass, I guarantee you, I'll show you guys a trick. Though you make a cartridge super concentric, the chamber of your rifle may be too sloppy where you're actually undersizing a brass way too much, causing more accuracy issues as well as extending your standard deviation. And again, this is for like the ultimate precision aspect of it. So that's why I always tell folks, like, if you're chasing accuracy and you get a production rifle, all you have, for instance, is a Ruger American Predator. It's a great rifle. Sometimes it's hit and miss, or you get a Savage 110 or Remington 700. My best advice, what I've seen, is you go out there, you get factory match ammunition, and I recommend the Hornady match ammunition. And if that rifle will not shoot under MOA, that barrel has an issue. So, and I'm not talking about go ahead and buying a bunch of match ammo to try it out. No, I'm talking about specifically buy the Hornady match ammo. For instance, you go with a 6.5 Creedmoor. Well, the Hornady match ammo is known in the precision world, and everybody on the forums, that the 140 ELD or the 123 or the 147 match ammo will shoot under MOA, and because I've seen some get under half MOA. So that's the big key factor, I think, to determine whether There's a problem with the accuracy department of your rifle, and if you need to spend the time on as well as investment on reloading supplies. And those that follow my channel, you guys know, and you see my Mossberg 100 ATR, that 308. I've struggled to get that thing to shoot accurate. I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on reloading supplies to get subpar results. The TC Compass, another one, 308. Spent freaking a year trying to get that thing to shoot. The number one thing that I did to make that thing shoot was just change the barrel. As soon as I swapped in a production quality barrel, everything came together. So that's why I always say shoot that rifle with a match ammunition. If it doesn't shoot, don't even hesitate. Don't even waste your time on reloading components. Get yourself a barrel.
I agree.
Yeah. There when you start doing reloading for a rifle, yeah, any rifle you do reloading for, hand loading, you're gonna get a little better accuracy. But what Kenny's saying is if you're expecting half minute of angle and all you're getting is 1 MOA or 0.9, and you're trying everything under the sun, including neck turning, you're probably expending more money on reloading supplies than if you would just get in touch with a gunsmith and barrel turner and have him put a barrel on your rifle. And just because, especially right now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. You go through 1,000 primers, that's $100+ right now. And so, you add that up, you add a couple pounds of Hodgdon powder that is hard to get. And you're like, not only are you going through supplies that you can use to actually enjoy your gun, if half MOA is what you're looking for, then there's barrels on the market that you can buy, and guys that like Kenny here that can put those barrels on a gun, and with very limited reloading after that, get very much capable of getting half minute of angle. And that's where he's talking. Yeah, reloading does improve no matter what hand loading, and especially when you start doing the precision hand loading, it's going to improve your accuracy. But if you spend $400 to get your gun from 1 MOA to 3/4 MOA, it would be just better to buy a 3/4 MOA barrel or a half MOA barrel and cut your losses right from the beginning. And that's my, like, right now my gun shoots an inch, and for a gun that cost as much as my rifle cost, really it should have shot better than an inch. And that's my personal opinion. But I mean, it used to be that rifles that came off the shelves, no matter you were buying a Weatherby that was $1,300, or you were buying a Winchester rifle right off of out of a big box store, you weren't getting 1 MOA accuracy back in the 70s and 80s. You were getting 2 minutes of angle, 2.5, and you were like, that was like the best you could do with factory ammo and a factory bought gun. But now, because of the CNC machines and everything, the technology has improved to the point where they're turning out 1 MOA guns where they can guarantee it from the factory now. And if you get a gun that doesn't shoot 1 MOA, usually when you take it apart, you can find out why. It's either a bad barrel, number one, or they set up the barrel onto the chassis incorrectly. They did something wrong there.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. With today's technology and advancement of barrel making, drilling a hole, as well as the advancing in the bullets, the trajectory or the powder that we have nowadays, at a half MOA is, I would consider, the standard nowadays. And more than anything, what would be exceptional would be a quarter or sub-quarter inch shooter. So the whole thing of, let's get your production rifle shoot MOA or better. Rifles manufactured today are more than capable of doing that, but there are companies out there that are cutting corners, especially right now with what's going on, that are just trying to punch these bores as fast as they can to get the profit. So one of the best tools I have invested on, and it's not super expensive, is a freaking bore cam, to be honest. So
I got one.
Yeah, the one from Teslon bore cam. I'll show you guys real quick. There's a bunch of them to be made. You got the solid rigid one. I have both.
We got a few questions here and comments.
Yeah, we'll go over that. But if, for instance, you buy a brand new rifle and you just bought some batch ammunition and it ain't shooting good, look how that barrel is collecting copper. There should not be any copper fouling within the center of the actual bore itself. So meaning from the chamber side, you'll see a little bit of copper there. Anything after 2 to 3 inches, it should be clean as snow, no copper at all. If you see copper buildup, that's a high spot on the bore. And then within the last 3 inches of the actual bore itself, you'll see copper. You won't be able to see that unless you get one of these bore cams. So I really highly recommend that. For one, it helps determine if you need to clean your rifle or how good you're cleaning your rifle. And 2, it helps determine if you're damaging your rifle. And thirdly, if your barrel that you have is accurate barrel or there's a problem with it.
Do you have a link for that thing, that system?
Yeah, I can drop a link. Give me a second here. Jump on the chat.
Somebody was talking here asking me about breaking a gun with cheap rounds or good. I say good rounds. I do personally. Use max grade ammo or your reloads to break in a barrel.
So the barrel breaking, obviously, there's guys out there that, well, I won't say the names, but they're saying don't do it. In my opinion, so the whole regimen of doing 1-shot clean, 2-shot clean, all of that is kind of sparse. I don't do that. I rely on my bore cam specifically to tell me what it's doing. So when I break in a barrel, I do 3 shot groups in the first 5 shots. But I'm allowing the copper to collect that tell me if there's anything down the bore of the rifle. Now I don't see a negative, negativity thing about not cleaning or doing a break-in procedure. If it doesn't hurt the rifle, I don't see why you shouldn't do it anyway. So there's guys out there that tell you not to do it, but then just shoot the hell out of your barrel. Well, then you don't know what the hell your barrel is doing. Without a bore cam.
I've got a bore cam, but it's not a good quality. Probably not as good as yours. It's one off of Amazon.
No, the Teslon's the only ones that I recommend right now with the money. For the money, it's sub $100. They have optimal clarity. They have the side mirror on it, so you can see your lands and grooves. Unlike some of the ones that are just like a plumber's bore cam, where you just see the bore itself. That's not going to tell you anything at all. So you need to have one with at least 720p. The good thing is that these Teslons are 1080p, 2 megapixels, but they are side focus. So at least 720p. So let's.
Yeah, I got a little cheap one here somewhere. I think I paid $40 for. Same one Elster uses on his channel a while back, a few years ago. But it don't hook up.
Dead Horse is exactly right. So I'm reading his comment. Definitely what he's saying, use some pure copper jacket ammo, some hot, like, for instance, you're shooting 5.56, use that and let the bore cam determine what you need to do with your barrel. Do you need to clean it? Do you need to do throw Vortex down it and remove the copper and see how it recollects? That's how I break in a barrel for me.
Yeah,
that's a good way.
When I've seen with AR-15s with looking down barrels of those for years. What Kenny's talking about is when a bullet is fired inside your chamber, it comes out of the end of the cartridge casing and it makes a slight jump into the rifling, and that slight jump into that rifling causes that impact to be pretty severe, almost like a forcing cone on a revolver. And when that bullet first makes contact into that rifling, it starts to shed a little bit of its copper jacket. And over time, you'll notice that part of the chamber where the rifling first begins will start to wear a little bit. This is totally normal in any throat and chamber of any center fire rifle that's high pressure. And you'll notice that wear starting to go further and further down away from the chamber. But when you start seeing what Kenny was talking about was the copper, how it jumps to different areas of the barrel. Right where the gas port is on an AR-15 rifle, 9 out of 10 times, unless you're talking you got a barrel manufactured by one of the top manufacturers and they got that hole for your gas tube, for your gas block, the gas journal, that hole, I've always seen a little bit of copper just past that hole in the barrel when looking at a bore cam. You can, and basically what that's telling me is the bullet going over that opening in the barrel is causing it to degrade a little bit of that copper off on that opening where that hole is. Now, whether that's because when they drilled that hole, they left a little bit of a jagged edge on the inside of that barrel. But these are things that I've noticed with cheaper barrels. The more expensive barrels seem not to do it as bad, but they still do it. But the jump of what happens is when that bullet hits that rifling in the very first time it hits it, and when it shaves that copper will be left behind on the rifling right there in the beginning of it. And then you will see as that bullet goes down the barrel where it gets tighter on that bullet, it will leave behind a fingerprint of copper. And you can look down a barrel and you'll see different spots where that bullet has come in contact tighter with the rifling and left a little fingerprint of copper behind. When you run a cleaning brush down a barrel of a rifle barrel, you will actually feel tighter spots where that bronze brush begins more restrictive resistance to you shoving it through the bore. Those are tight spots in barrels. Usually, when you get higher dollar barrels, they have less tight spots because the actual cutting of the bore is done with more specific tooling, and it is more uniform all the way down, which is giving you more accuracy and in the long run, because you're not going to be shedding these little bits of copper here and there down the barrel. And it's going to be a faster barrel because that bullet can run faster down it without hitting those tight spots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that goes back to, the biggest advantage of having a custom barrel made. To kind of piggyback exactly what you're saying. So there's a reason why these manufacturers go with mostly chromoly barrels. It's because it's a cheap metal. They last longer. It gives it more durability. When a rifle is made in production and manufactured, they aim towards reliability and the hunting aspect. With the bore cam, if you see a copper, just to go up for Drew's comment, if you see copper collecting, the cool thing about a solid rod bore cam like the one from Teflon, it is marked in inches, and there's also a stopper right here. So you go down the bore, you see copper collecting in a certain spot. Well, go ahead, mark it, put a stopper on there, then get your jag, get a nice fit, tight jag, and check it. Go down there when you punch the bore with your cleaning rod, a one-piece cleaning rod. It should be smooth. It shouldn't be choppy. It should be a consistent, slight resistance and push. If you push that thing, you should be able to do it with 2 fingers. Push it all the way through, and it somehow stops on resistance. Mark it on your cleaning rod, and then check it again with your bore cam to see if that is a tight spot or a low spot. If it's a low spot, your jag is going to go through. A low spot really isn't that bad. The high spots are what you really want to find. And when you go to these high-end barrel manufacturers, and I'm not saying that they don't do that too. I've had to return proof barrels, Bartline barrels, Benchmark, every one of those high-end barrels. Sometimes you get one, and that's just my experience over 400 plus rifles I've built. But definitely the bore cam is going to tell you where it is on the bore, and then the jag is going to confirm it if it's a tight spot. Now, you could go ahead and get JB bore paste and polish that out, but if you're not really too keen or familiar with polishing a bore, you could actually damage that barrel beyond repair. So it's a very special technique in lapping. Now, with these production barrels, these high manufactured barrels, it's kind of like wine or like I say whiskey. They actually will make the barrel, they'll drill it out, they'll cut the lands and grooves or button rifle it, and they actually put it into a controlled environment room to let it season and actually collect a certain amount of rust. Lets the molecules of the barrel realign and all that, and they stress relieve the barrel. So there's a lot more attention to detail on these stainless steel barrels, and that's why you see ultimate accuracy. Usually you see the best accuracy with these custom barrels. And that's been my experience. The best upgrade, if you're chasing accuracy, $350. I did a video recently, Crown Ridge Barrel Works. Their turnaround time right now is within a week of a pre-fit barrel. They got pre-fit barrels for Savage, Remage, Ruger RPRs, Rugers in general, TC Compass. I've been working with Anthony Ward, and you guys seen the video of how much accuracy he goes into when he actually chambers these barrels. So when he cuts the chamber, and we'll touch on this. That chamber is close to SAMI spec minimum, which is going to best fit your full length size and die. So that's another benefit. You get a custom chambered barrel. That chamber is going to be close to your full length size and die. And how you could check is if you have, for instance, a production rifle, go ahead and fire that rifle. And a lot of people don't do this. I mean, think about the aspect of what you're trying to do when you full length size your brass. You're trying to get everything just sized just enough for it to chamber reliably, but have enough size and able to have just that right amount of expansion. Folks don't really take measurements. Like if you should be taking measurements of your case head right here, just underneath the head of the case, the body, and also the web, where the case head separation is. Then go ahead and run it through your full length size and die and see how much that thing sizes down. If you have a production rifle, I guarantee you probably see over 4 thousandths of oversizing, and that actually causes more of an issue. It causes a possible case set separation. It reduces your brass life. It also increases your SD numbers. All of that goes negative towards accuracy. So that's why I always say the best investment, in my opinion, over anything is a nice custom barrel. Now there are production barrels out there like that Ruger American, which I got lucky on that one. I guess that one shot pretty damn good, and the chamber of that barrel is pretty tight. So that's just I don't know what you guys think of that.
Yeah.
I have the bore cam you're talking about. The only thing, the company could not get it to work with my PC. Only my phone with the case off. I called tech support. Had no luck, I just kind of put it back and never, followed through on it.
Yeah, the one I got's got his own little PDA. This just makes it simple. It makes it simple. I just need to real quick just look down it real quick. I need something to look at it, and it's very sharp an image. In fact, I can turn it on for you and show you.
So Kenny, it comes with its own monitor.
Yeah, I know they updated it quite often, and unfortunately, you are buying China made, but just like everything else, everything's freaking Chinese owned anyway. But I'll turn it on, and I'll throw it through a barrel real quick.
Mine's the same brand. I don't have the screen though thing. Yeah, I need the one you got with a screen.
Yeah, so obviously I got a lot of oil in there, but we'll go through chamber. So you can see where. Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard to show in the webcam, but you can see the lands and grooves, right? That's what you're looking for right there. You want to see where the copper is collecting and all that. This is a TC Compass or LRR. So what I really check on a production rifle is go right to the free bore and check the lands and grooves to see how concentric they are. These production rifles, you'll notice that a land and groove will be longer than the other, and that's going to indicate that chamber was cut crooked. So when a chamber is cut crooked, they use most likely these manufacturers use a solid pilot reamer, and what ends up happening when the reamer is going in there crooked, it ends up wallowing out the rear of the chamber and making the actual back of the chamber wider than what it needs to be.
Hmm.
So that's where you get your uh-oh moment when you fully size your brass. Now you have 4/1000 of expansion that brass has to go through, and that constant stretching and resizing and stretching and resizing. That area is very crucial, and that's where you're going to get your case set separation. A good indication of that is if you ever size your brass or throw a fulling sizing die, and you do notice a line. I don't know if this shows up here, but there's a line right here on the webbing, like right in that area.
I've seen lines.
Yeah, that's a good indication that either, for one, your chamber is oversized in the rear. Two, your fulling sizing die is not matched to that chamber. So, you know, there's really no other way to fix it other than the fact to just keep in mind that brass that you have is potentially going to thin out and get work hardened on that area. And if you're pushing pressures, if you're pushing a high velocity, high pressures, that's a potential area where you will have failure on that cartridge.
So, yeah, I want that one you got. I'm going to buy that because the one I got didn't come with a screen. And it's, man, I take my entire case off my phone just to get it to plug in. I've got adapters. I've got everything. It will work on the phone, but it will not work on the PC. So
right.
I got tired of that. So, yeah, if you can get a link on that.
I'll try to look it up. It's on Amazon. Yeah. I'll see if I'll grab it because they got a bunch of them out there. They got a pistol version. They got the Wi-Fi version. It just whatever floats your boat, you know.
Right.
But you know that's honestly, if you go down the route of just getting a production rifle, you contact a company. If they don't provide you a matching fulling sizing die, or you ask them about one and they're like, no, we don't do that, I'd stay away from that company. You're going to spend a lot of money for them building a rifle, and what they're going to do is contact a barrel manufacturer to get a pre-fit made because it's just fast and easy. The labor is out; it's not there. All they're doing is assembling a rifle. So there's a lot of assemblers out there, not builders. So, unfortunately. So a lot of folks spend thousands of dollars, and yeah, you get good performance, but there's a huge advantage finding a gunsmith that will custom hand fit a barrel. For one, you're going to get that ultimate tight fit on the barrel. For me, I time a barrel. The curvature of the bore is timed right at the high spot being on the 6 o'clock side. So if folks don't know, these barrels when they drill a barrel, it's usually bowed, right? So these barrels will have a bow. It's very hard to drill 20 to 30 inches of stainless steel without having a deviation in it. It's kind of like digging a hole. You're digging a hole on the ground, you find a soft spot, your shovel or your mole is going to go down. You find a hard spot, it may deviate up. Same thing with the barrel. So seeing where the high spot is, and I time these barrels, it really helps out mitigate all that horizontal and stringing. You're only fighting vertical deviation. And like I said, I cut these when I order my sizing reamers, I actually order a sizing reamer, a chamber reamer, and a sizing reamer. So I have a sizing reamer specifically designed to match the chamber of the rifle, and I do make full-length sizing dies if requested. But you know, it's the same labor as a barrel. So a lot of guys oversee it like, oh, I don't want to spend $250 on a sizing die. Well, if you're chasing accuracy, that's honestly the best thing to do. But in fact, you got to think about it. It's the same labor as me chambering a rifle. So far, I was gonna say that whole thing of me having my own matched sizing dies have really drastically improved my accuracy downrange, or at least for the rifles that I've built.
Yeah, I've heard of people making those dies like that.
Yeah, those. Yeah, I agree. If you're going to be getting a custom barrel done on your particular firearm, it's almost stupid not to have them go ahead and make you a die with the same reamer that they chambered your rifle with. Because, I mean, you're never going to get a fit like that. I mean, it's done on the same mill. that turn the barrel chamber. It's using the same reamer. I mean, you're with anything, you're trying to eliminate variables in precision rifle shooting. And everybody says consistency. Well, what does consistency mean? Well, the same from rifle to rifle, from shot to shot. The more consistent you make your neck tension, and the more consistent your brass casing will hold that neck tension, is also going to play a huge part on your deviation in feet per second. We've noticed in the past, me and Kenny, that we were running into extreme deviation spreads that were higher after bumping shoulders back 2000s, but we weren't annealing the brass either at that time. Now that we're annealing it, we're starting to see a little bit more benefit out of the 2000s bump back. But if you're not annealing your brass, you're work hardening it. And when you work harden it, different thickness brass is going to harden differently, and because of that, you will get variations added into your setup, which is going to cause feet per second variations out the end of your barrel. And that's going to cause point of impact shifts on your target. That's why when we're saying constant, consistent reloading skills, consistent brass, like when I bought my brass, I didn't buy Lapua because I really didn't want to spend the money. So I went with Starline, which is good brass, but it's not Lapua. It's not Lapua. It's not going to give you the same weight of cartridge from cartridge to cartridge. The deviation on capacity will vary more. You'll notice when you start spending more money on brass, you start getting more consistent brass from piece to piece. And the only way to really do it is take 100 pieces of Remington brass, 100 pieces of Lapua brass, and 100 pieces of Starline brass, and weigh them all and set them in piles that are exactly the same weight. And you'll notice that the spread over the Lapua will be much closer from pile to pile than from Starline, and then your other brands, Remington, Winchester, and whatnot. They all kind of have their own areas of where they fall into line as well. But once again, we're trying to alleviate deviation, and gain consistency, and we're trying to eliminate anything that's going to cause those weird, man, what is going on? Like when you resize a piece of brass, and you'll notice you'll measure it right after you pull it out of the sizing die, and you'll see where it stands. And you wait an hour and measure that same piece of brass, and you're going to deviate. The reason why is because you've got work hardening in different areas of that brass, where it was sized more in that area than the next piece, which causes work hardening, which causes it to be stiff and not flow. And when brass doesn't flow smooth and evenly from piece to piece is when you'll see consistency differences in neck tension. And that really does play a huge part in your feet per second deviation from shot to shot.
You remember that ammo I was loading the other night? That 2235 55 grain?
Yes.
Okay. I actually did it with range brass. Don't even have a half a thou bump concentricity on this bullet here. You can barely see the needle move on it. Not bad. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of I guess folks really concentrate on the concentricity. Honestly, all of that really doesn't matter unless you're shooting past 1,000 yards. Like if you're just shooting 1,000 yards on a 24-inch plate, you can kind of be a little bit more relaxed on all of those little fine details. So, you know, going over what we're talking about, I guess, we explained why a custom barrel works. I was going to ask the question: how do you guys start? Like, where do you guys start your reloads from? Like, how do you determine where should I start? That is the number one question that I get all the time. If somebody is new to reloading and they're like, well, where do I start? Like, what powder charge? And obviously everybody knows the same thing. Definitely get yourself a reputable source on reloading data. Don't go by online articles and all that. I guess I would kind of be the abnormal. I would say it's okay to utilize some of the online data. However, you want to make sure you see repeatable data of that. So, it's common sense. Precision Rifle Blog does a lot of great articles and write-ups, which they interview a lot of the top shooters shooting that cartridge, and they'll go over their load details and stuff. So that's a reputable source, and you can start there and see exactly what they're finding as accuracy nodes and what bullet combination. So, for instance, a 6.5 Creedmoor, a lot of guys shoot the 147 ELD. You could go on numerous forums and you could see just repeatable postings of somebody saying 41.6 grains, 41.4 grains, 41 grains of Hagen 4350. And then obviously take that information that you gather with online forums and double check it with your reloading books to make sure you're not going to be overpressured. Or if you're at that high pressure side, that obviously exercise caution on that. That stated, how far back do you start with your bullet jump? Now, I can kind of share my experience, and I like to see what you guys do. But what I do is I get a fired case, and definitely start with what you're saying: quality brass, Starline, Peterson, Lapua, whatever it is. Get a fired case and give it a small crimp with some pliers or whatnot. Get a bullet, mark the bullet with a Sharpie, and when you push the bullet down, it's going to have a slight resistance. So next thing you want to do after that, what I do is I take the firing pin out of my rifle, out to where there's nothing but just the bolt itself, and I go ahead and I chamber it and let it determine where my bullet is engaging the lands. Of course, you could use a Hornady case gauge comparator like this. But the caveat to having a tool like this is if you use their case gauges, they are automatically sized to minimum SAMI spec, which is not going to be your Fireform brass. So the overall length of what you'll get with one of the Hornady's modified cases is not going to accommodate that expansion on your chamber. So you're not going to get an accurate reading. So if you're going to use a tool like this, you definitely have to have a modified case with a fired piece of brass that you have fired out of your chamber. So more than likely, you probably won't have one of these tools or have the ability to make a modified case. So the method of just crimping the brass and putting a bullet in there with some Sharpie mark, running it into the lands to see where your overall length is. Sometimes they may pull the bullet out, but that's why the Sharpie mark's there. It'll tell you, kind of give you a general idea of where you are engaging the lands. And once you determine that overall length, get your case-based OGIVE comparator. If you don't have one, you can definitely go with case overall length. And what I like to do is I start 25 thousandths off of that. So you'll get your case, your jam points essentially of your bullet, and I work 25 thousandths, and then I load 3 shot groups and 5 thousandths jumps. So if, for instance, I'm 2.800 for 25 thousandths jump. The next 3 shots, the next ladder charge I'll load is 2.805, and work at that accuracy node. So that's what I do, but I'd like to see what you guys think or your technique.
Yeah, I have a bullet from Sinclair 308 bullet OGIVE comparator.
Yeah.
Here.
That's what I do as well. I start at 25 thousandths off, and I work down in 5,000 increments until I get to contact with the actual lands, and then I'll compare velocities, which will give me kind of a pressure. it's kind of a redneck way of judging pressure. When you know, if you're getting 2,800 feet per second and the cartridge is calling for that as a max velocity with that bullet weight, you can guesstimate kind of you're getting close to your pressure values at high side. What I do try to do is I try to find that notch of distance between the bullet and the lands at about 3/4 max charge. Somewhere in there, I've noticed on about, I probably have to say 85% of rifles I have loaded for a accuracy node somewhere in that 3/4 of the charge weight. When you look at starting to max, 3/4 of the way up that scale, 85% of all rifles I've chambered or loaded for, I have found an accuracy node in that 3/4 of the way up there, and somewhere between 25 thousandths and sitting on the lands.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I was going to say, definitely my experience as well with as many rifles that I've manufactured and built. You're 100% correct. What I've noticed, which is a common trend, is you find your max pressure point where you're just starting to get a flattened primer or maybe a slight ejector mark. Stop there and go back 1 grain and work around there. That's technically where I've seen the accuracy nodes on stick powder for it to come together. Stick powder likes to run near max pressure. That's just what it does for majority of these rifle cartridges. With the exception of 4198, if you use that for the lower, say for instance, like a 6.5 Grendel or something. So, yeah, exactly what you're saying. That these charges like to be near max pressure, and more than likely you'll find an accuracy node about 1 grain underneath your max pressure. And again, if you find that, do go online and actually start looking at the forums of what people post, and you'll see that your data will fall kind of in line on what the results are as well. I still do the Satterley method, but I don't really emphasize it as much anymore. Where you're doing a little flat velocity plateau and whatnot. And the reason why I say that is because the barrels that I now put on my rifles are not super picky, where you have a very fine accuracy node. These barrels will have obviously very thick barrels, and they will hold a node within plus or minus 1 grain, and it will hold that accuracy right there.
Michael wants to know what equipment you reload with, Kenny.
Okay. So this is something that I've gotten humbled with. It's taken me 5 years of buying equipment and buying the wrong equipment, and obviously expanding and getting better equipment. So from my experience so far, and I'm not a pro, I definitely recommend the Mex Marksman. I love that press. I believe Echo has one as well. It's a very solid press. The RCBS Rock Chucker. Everybody knows about the Rock Chucker. That press is solid. The Lee 4-hole turret press. That's another great press that I could definitely produce some accurate ammunition. As far as reloading dies, the Redding body die is what I use for full length size in my brass. It does not affect the neck at all. So this is how I do my rifle cartridges. I use a Redding body die, or I make the die myself. And lately I've been making my own dies. The Lee collet die is what sets the neck tension, and I do manufacture and make my own mandrels, which in fact, if you guys don't know, you can contact Lee Precision or go on the website, and you have undersized mandrels and oversized mandrels to get that perfect neck tension that you need. I don't neck turn. When I cut these chambers, I cut them tight, meaning that these chambers are already allowing the brass to expand no more than 2 thousandths, all the way from the neck down to the web of the cartridge. So that is how tight these chambers are set. So I actually, I prefer Starline brass, and I go with Lapua as well, because the brass is uniform. If you get a ball mic, you don't have to neck turn it as much. You're probably having deviation of maybe 5-10 thousandths on the neck. So, and then on top of that, the my ideal neck expansion. So neck expansion goes with measuring your fired piece of brass versus your size brass or loaded cartridge is no more than 8 thousandths to 12 thousandths. So if your brass is only expanding and hitting the case wall or hitting the wall of your cartridge or I'm sorry of your chamber, 8 to 12 thousandths is where I've seen it to be like the best for my experience. But as far as reloading gear, I stick with cartridges that are known for shooting accurate. 308, 6.5 Creedmoor. You know, obviously I have the 6 arc, 6 millimeter Creedmoor, powders. You know, all of that is just abundance of information. So you're not really having to fight, you know, experimental reloading. And that's something I've done in the past where I got a 6.5 Creedmoor and I get like some of the Endurum powders, like the 4166 or something like that. And I'm sitting here wasting my time and reloading components when I could get this, you know, like I said, set a goal. I want a velocity of 2,800 feet a second. And here I am fighting, experimenting with powders that just, I don't know. And when Hodgson 4350, it just works. So keep it simple is kind of what I've been working on. And with the reloading gear is, you could definitely get pretty stupid on reloading gear. Like you can see here, and I do have one of those hydraulic presses over there, there, which will you could test your neck tension as you seat the bullet, and you know that's for like bench rest stuff. But if you're not shooting 1,000 yards or trying to get a gnat's ass at 1,000 yards, that's not needed. You know, you're realistically at 1 MOA.
So you got a gauge on that, right, Kenny?
Yeah, it's got a hydraulic pressure gauge. So when you seat the bullet, you'll see how uniform it is. Obviously, Amp Annealing came out with their little like sensor gauge, which is all graphed out and stuff. And to me, I don't know. Maybe I just favor things that have been proven in the past. Like there's a lot of technology coming out where guys are saying you need to buy this, you need to buy the Amp Annealer, you need to buy this. Well, realistically, guys have been shooting competition bullseye, F class, bug eye targets since the 1900s and getting phenomenal results without that equipment. And it's all just in being repeatable with how you reload and finding key things on, you know, like if you shoot a piece of brass or you shoot a rifle and you have a chronograph set up and you find that your SD all of a sudden went up. Well, that last shot you did a dip down velocity, and you keep having a weird firing. You know, just a simple thing of, okay, that piece of brass, I'm going to mark that piece of brass. So on the next time I reload, if I get another freaking flyer and it's that same piece of brass, well, guess what? That piece of brass is going to go in the freaking trash because that's causing me deviation. So little things like that really help out tighten everything up. And like I said, it's just techniques that have been proven for over the years that you don't need a computer to tell you that. But I don't know how you guys feel about that.
There is a reason why people continue practices. Basically, if it didn't work, people would not waste their time to continue doing it. One of the cool things that like what those hydraulic pressure gauges will show you is simple things that what you do in your reloading practices. Okay. For instance, seating a bullet. All right. Just the simple act of you brushing your case mouth in case neck out with a nylon bristled brush reduces the case the bullet seating force by 20%, and that's just simply brushing anything dust related or anything out of your case neck. Add your powder or your primer, your powder, your bullet. Your bullet will seat 20% less force than if you did not brush that case. It has something to do with the way the brush reacts to the clean surface of brass. It it causes the brass to be a little bit more lubricious when it has nothing sitting static on the surface of the brass, such as dust, carbon, anything that might be there. So little tips like that, just brushing your neck out before you get to the, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
can reduce up to 20% of your seating force, which is going to cause your bullet to seat more centered, less out of concentricity. It's going to also keep your neck tension the same per bullet. Okay, if you use the same neck die, say you're using a Lee collet die and a Redding bump dies just to set the shoulder and body tension, then you're setting the neck tension at 20 pounds of force, just like Lee says to. And then you brush that neck. Well, you've just reduced the seating force by 20%. So that's not wearing your bullet seating die or your press as bad. And in doing that, it's keeping the bullet more consistent in that seating procedure. The actual seating depth is going to be more accurate. The concentricity and the overall way the bullet sits against the brass is going to have more of a lubricious surface to exit during firing.
Echo, do you use graphite? Kenny, you ever use graphite on your neck of the brass?
No, I mean, I may be one of the weird ones where I just use a brush, and in fact, I don't even clean my brass. I mean, I barely clean my brass, to be honest. I will literally fire it 15, 20 times, and all I do is I wipe it down with denatured alcohol and just a cloth. So I have a rag that I have sitting here, just full of denatured alcohol, get all the carbon out of it, obviously, and then run it through the full-length size die with unique case lube or something like that, right? So Echo is 100% right with what collects inside the neck. So a simple brush is a technique that I think it should be implemented, at least if just something you do automatically, brushing out the inside of the case. But what about you, Al?
What was that, brother?
I was gonna say, what do you do, AR?
Oh, AR, yeah. How do you do it?
I do it with a brush. I use a brush and also use the Redding graphite sometimes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I test it and see if there's any difference.
Yeah, and then this would be another tip that I've learned. It's taken me a while. It's really cool to get nice shiny ass brass and everything, right? But you think about why is brass used in a rifle cartridge? It's specifically designed to grip. So if you call it, and I see a lot of guys doing this as a newbie. They'll go in there, they'll see, oh, my chamber looks all scratched up, so they go in there with a Dremel tool and polish the hell out of the chamber. No, don't do that. Another thing they do is they highly polish their brass. They'll throw it to a vibrating tumbler, throw new finish or something in there to get it polished. Well, you're taking out all the microfiber scratches and stuff. And if you think about what brass does, it's supposed to grip the chamber wall and seal off those gases. And what happens if you highly polish brass? Well, you inhibit the ability of the brass to do its job. So if you're doing load development, your SD numbers are going to go increase. That's from my testing. I've seen SD numbers increase just because of high polished brass. Number two, you're going to hit pressures a lot sooner because now the brass is trying to grip the chamber wall, and it is slipping. So and then bounce it back to the bolt. So,
Kenny, David Tubb actually just talks about what you're talking about on one of his old videos about over cleaning brass, how it don't seem to form to the chamber as well or grip.
No, and honestly, if you just throw it through, I like to wet tumble my brass, but I've been experimenting with some of the ceramic ball inside the Frankfurt Arsenal, which is a dry tumble. And it does knock off all the carbon. The caveat or downside to it, it doesn't clean out the primer pockets. But that's what the Lineman Prep Center is. And thank you, Uncle Jim, for sending that over a year ago. I freaking love this thing. The Lineman Case Prep Center, if you guys are new to reloading, if this is one piece of gear you should buy, the Lyman Case Prep Center should be top choice, because that thing
like
by far saves you a lot of time on your case prep. That stated, yeah, that I just throw it the uniform primer pocket and clean out all the carbon that way. So, like I said, yeah. So the brass itself, I barely clean it. I do clean it eventually. It just gets to the point to where I'm like, dude, it looks like shit. I'm just gonna clean it. So,
Yeah.
um,
But never before a match.
yeah, so never before a match. And I challenge you guys, the information that was shared today, you know, always verify yourself. Like there's a lot of channels out there that tell you need to do this. This is what you need to do. I'm a pro shooter. I've been doing this for years. Well, cool. It may, whatever works for them may not work for you. So to quantify the data and prove it out, dude, go ahead and try it yourself and see what it does for you. So I'm just sharing my experience, and a lot of guys get really good performance with very shiny brass. However, their goals and accuracy are different than mine. So for me, obviously, you guys know I just started engaging into the PRS world. So I've been kind of really slacking on the precision side of reloading, and I'm benefiting getting my cartridges loaded up as fast as I can and getting range time to shooting F class and getting ultimate accuracy. So I'm definitely implementing a lot of the reloading aspects of shooting for accuracy in the F class into PRS. I'm basically combining both reloading technique as well as just going out there and shooting.
I wish I was doing that.
Well, I'm still young. I'm still learning how to get into this and what works. What I could say is that the rifles that I have built, I have yet to see one that I've left my shop shoot over half an inch, and they usually shoot about a 0.3. And I'm not just bragging. I'm just sharing what's going on with the rifles that I built. And through that experience, I could definitely say that there's a lot of things that I've done in the past that are really OCD and really isn't needed, and certain things that I've picked up recently, like for instance, when you do your load development, you go out there and you got a gnat's ass group, a bug hole group at 100 yards. SDs are low. I challenge you guys to not just base that off the information. Don't go out there and shoot one group and find out, that's the cream of the ball. I'm going to load 200 rounds that way. Go out there and retest that thing, because like James Pollard says, you want to find a node, an accuracy node that's wide, meaning you could go plus or minus 0.3 of a grain or even half a grain without it knocking off its accuracy. That's the kind of load you want to get, especially for hunting scenario where you're going up in a different elevation. You got different climate changes. Temperatures affect the accuracy node. All of that will knock you off your accuracy. So when I do my load development, I shoot groups, but I go out there for consistency. And then after I'm done, I shoot it at range. Now, if you guys are familiar with Jack Neary, I was talking about this on the last live chat where he had a whole reloading series. He talked about doing your load development at minimum 200 yards or further, because at 100 yards, you're not going to see the effects of bullet stability, meaning that when you shoot a bullet at 100 yards, if you have a keen eye, you'll see that the carbon around the hole punch where it punched a hole in the paper, you may see it kind of slightly darker on one side than the other. If you notice that, even though I shot a really tight group, you want to stay away from that group, because that bullet isn't 100% stabilized. And you won't notice that at 100 yards, but you will notice that at 200 yards. So it's really highly recommended to actually do your load development at further ranges and look for vertical striation, or if you have diagonal striation, vertical stringing, horizontal stringing. All of that's going to determine that, hey, my group at 100 yards that I shot previously is a 0.25, but at 500 yards, it's barely holding a half MOA, or it's barely holding MOA. But the group that I shot before that, the powder charge I shot before that, it was a 0.4 inch. However, it is holding a half MOA all the way out to 1,000 yards. That is the load you want to get to, because you'll see little things like how the bullet punches the paper. It's more stabilized. The accuracy node is wider. It's more temperature stable. It's obviously not having deviation downrange. I mean, there's a lot of key factors in accuracy when you talk about precision reloading.
Drew's got
Yeah.
a question here. It comes up quite a bit on YouTube. Could the brush be pulling in some neck sizing lube from inside behind the shoulder and in turn lubing the inside of the neck? Some lubes are powder safe.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could say that if there was, but not for me. I have a special brush that I use. There's nothing coming in contact with the brush other than the neck of the case.
He's talking about
And
lube. I say lube from lube coming into play. Apparently,
what you mean from the outside of the brass, but I neck
yeah,
size, so there is no lube involved.
yeah.
So yeah, that wouldn't be. I have used graphite before.
That's
And there are some benefits to using graphite. I'm going to hit on them real quick. Brass and copper, okay, they will create a type of corrosion bond. The longer a bullet stays in contact with brass, and the copper will start to change a little color from where it's being held by the brass. And you can do this by just using a bullet puller and pulling a bullet out of a piece of brass that you've sat in there for 6 to 8 months. Even the companies, Hornady, Winchester, Remington, they will use a protective coating that they put on their bullets that will help benefit, not so they will not it's almost like a corrosion type of bonding. And a lot of bench press shooters will set their cartridges long, and then the morning of their match they will set their final seating depth to eliminate that from happening, and because that will cause their standard deviations to go all over the place. What were you going to say, Kenny? I interrupted you.
I was going to say that's exactly what you're saying. That it's that galvanic corrosion which tends to bond the bullet, the brass to the bullet. So there's, like I said, there's so much, man. There's so much to it. For an average shooter, I wouldn't stress on learning all of that, but it is good information.
Yeah, Drew, I don't neck size either. I mean, I do if I get new brass, I put bushings in because my brass is so small, even 308. But I do put a bushing in it and I size it. So it's
yeah. So I can share what I do. Obviously, there's that controversial video, and it was did as a joke. First of all, you can tell by the title. But other than that, I do use a neck sizing die, and I do that on the first 2 to 3 firings, and that is to allow the brass to fully expand to the chamber of my rifle. That way, I can take measurements of my chamber. Obviously, you can do it with Serral Safe as well. Excuse me, you can do it with Serral Safe as well, but I most accurately want to document my measurements on my brass and then see what my sizing die does. Because ideally, I'm trying to match my sizing die to my chamber. And if you're really serious about getting your SDs low, you may be going with Hornady dies to try out and find out the Hornady dies just are undersizing the brass way too much. You switch to Redding dies, and well, your concentricity went all over the place now, and then all of a sudden your dies are sized correctly, but concentricity ain't there. And then you go to for instance, a Mighty Armory die, which is a $110 die, and that one seems to be the ticket. So, there's a lot of concept to it, but that's if you're chasing accuracy,
I full length size with Type S bushings on the lapel brass just to excuse me, just to get the neck tension because the brass really when you run it through a full length die, it don't hardly touch the die because it's smaller than it will ever be when you buy it brand new.
So what I do, and this is because the platform of rifles that I shoot have a free floating bolt head. I take advantage of that bolt head slot. So free floating bolt head like a Savage 10 or Savage 110, they have the bolt head where it wiggles around. You could obviously detach it, put another bolt head in there. That slop is honestly, in my opinion, a good design. It allows that action to act like a trued up action if you size the brass to take advantage of that. So what I do is I remove the firing pin of my rifle. If you don't have time, you can definitely do it with it in there. But I size my brass to where it barely has any resistance, and I do use a comparator to make sure that I'm not going plus 2000s on headspace. I want to do 0. So that's what I do for my precision reloading. Gosh damn it, people keep calling me. This is what I do for my extreme long range precision reloading, and as well as PRS. Um, it is a little bit, I guess, it has a little bit more resistance than what people are used to. Then again, I am not oversizing my brass. I'm not working the bolt hard. It's size, folding size. The body is sized down, but the from the base to the ogive of the actual bullet itself, or the cartridge, is set at 0 or just under that to about 1,000ths. So technically about a 1,000ths bump or just 0. I try to aim for 0 on my Savages. Now, if it's a Remington 700, because it is a solid bolt, I do bump the brass back 2,000ths, just so I don't have to. It doesn't have that ability or doesn't have that advantage. There's no reason to do that, and it gives. I don't want to be rocking the bolt or rocking the rifle in competition, so I do I bump back on my Remington 700 rifles or solid bolts that I do.
Yeah. So basically, where we're getting with this, folks, is precision hand loading is more or less where you buy all new components and you're creating a totally new cartridge. And you're doing that through full length sizing, knocking the shoulder back 2,000ths, whether you're neck sizing. I prefer neck sizing when I'm shooting factory rifles, because I've noticed through the years the reason why they came up with neck sizing dies in the first place was because people shot factory off the shelf rifles. Um, I can take a factory rifle and I can neck size it and I can fire form the brass, and I'm good for 3 to 4 more firings out of that brass. And every time I shoot it, that cartridge is going to be a little bit more accurate than the time before I shot it, because it is expanded to my chamber size a little bit more. There's a little bit less free play in there. There's a little bit less wiggle. So you're taking a little bit more variable out of that equation. And every time you take variable out of the equation, you gain consistency. Now, you can be consistently inaccurate, but most of the time when you start being more consistent from round to round, you will start noticing a trend called accuracy, and it becomes addictive. You're like, well, if I did this and I got this, well, I'm going to try this next time. And this is how people have gotten through the years and come up with the practices that me and Kenny are doing and AR are doing when we're reloading our precision rifle rounds. Um, we were here to help you guys out, to help you load your own precision rifle rounds. But you're going to have to do a little bit of experimentation yourself and with your rifle, because just like your fingerprint, no 2 rifle barrels are the same. And on that, Kenny, anything else you wanted to put in on that?
Well, I mean, it's like I said, it's all about validating for yourself, like you're saying. Now, I prefer full length sizing just because of the competition shooting that I'm doing. I can't afford the rifle to rock as I'm closing a bolt and get me off target. Um, but at home when I'm target shooting or doing ELR, I switch back and forth. I'll full length size, and then the next reloads, I'm just dumping it through a collet die, neck sizing it, just so I can get the rounds reloaded right away, and I know it's going to be accurate. So it's just things that you do. You kind of, like I said, it's tools in the toolbox. You learn techniques of what to do things, and you know that, hey, I could try this out on my rifle. Hey, it didn't really work or give me the results that I wanted. However, I'm going to try this other technique. Well, shoot, my SD's numbers are going low. Now, I was reading Michael Hurtnick's a comment about powder dropping. Well, if you guys follow my channel, I use an $8 scale. This is a little WowE scale. Now, there's a lot of guys that recommend you got to get a freaking Prometheus. buy one for one. You can't even buy a Prometheus. It's actually lent to you on lease. By the way, it's the best scale in the market. Or you get an A&D lab scale and all that stuff. I do believe that differences in powder charge and weight do affect how much velocity increase and decreases. However, there are a hell of a lot more variables in just the brass alone, which affect your standard deviation in SDs and ES. I have no problem with the scales that I have, and I will be testing this later on as I advance in my hand loading. The scale that I have right now and my reloading is still producing a 6 SD or lower. I can consistently get single digit SDs. So how much more does an A&D scale that costs $1,000 improve on my hand loads when I'm already getting an SD? I'm already hitting my mark. I got my velocity. I got sub MOA or sub half inch MOA accuracy at 1,000 yards. In fact, last week I put a 1.5 inch group at 985 yards, and everybody's telling me to go after F class. So I'm like, I don't know if I could do it again, but that's just the results that I'm getting with the tool that I have. So, an interesting fact that I found out: there's companies out there that will hydroform. For instance, you're trying to get 6BRX brass, and there's companies out there that you can send the brass out, your 6BR brass, to hydroform to 6BRX. So I asked the question: how much pressure does it take for it to hydroform the brass? And majority of them say about 80,000 psi to fully hydroform the brass. So then my next question I asked them is, well, what kind of pressure deviation do you see between the same lot of brass and between different pieces of brass? He told me he's plus and minus 15 to 25 thousandths of pressure in hydroforming brass to get that thing to hydroform. So
Wow.
the light bulb went off. Well, what he's showing, what he's implementing is hydroforming is technically almost the same, not the same, but it's in the same realm. It's expanding the brass. It's showing your brass expansion rate. And even with the brass that I sent out there that has been professionally amp annealed using an amp annealer, he had deviation of over 25 thousandths just in the brass alone. And this is Peterson brass. So correlating that data with what happens when you fire a cartridge, well, your brass is expanding at different rates. So the powder charge does play an effect to it, but the actual brass itself plays more of an effect to how your SDs improve or how your SDs come out, your brass expansion. You're trying to build uniform peak velocity or peak pressure to get that uniform, max velocity. So that's why I really, when I do my reloading and I do my shot or my testing, I shoot a group and I shoot like 5 or 6 5-shot groups. Once I'm done hand loading, and I go through a lot of 100. I want 100 pieces of brass. If I'm chasing ultimate accuracy, I do volume sort the brass, and then the next thing I do is I actually fire sort what I consider fire sorting the brass. I'm going to look for that piece of brass that caused my SD to go 10 or 12. I will mark that piece of brass with a Sharpie. I'll then go back, do my whole reloading procedure, go back out there with those marked pieces of brass and see if that marked piece of brass is going to cause another fly or standard deviation. If it does, that piece of brass gets culled out of the lot and it gets tossed in the trash. So that's how I'm able to kind of utilize that that procedure and not have a really high end powder measure and kind of just focus on the aspect of what's going on and and collect 100 pieces of brass that are going to give me the results that I want.
Yeah, that would make sense because, good Lord, 25,000 psi. That's a lot. That's almost that's basically half a max of a max rifle charge. If you're thinking max is around 62,000 psi, 63, and you're pushing with 25, 30 thousandths of deviance between cartridges. That right there is going to give you your SD issues right there. There's absolutely no way to tune that any further. That's why I've always told people, if you're getting single digits in your deviation from round to round, if you're getting your extreme spreads are not double-digit numbers, you're doing good. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. The the more that's what I'm talking. The more variables that you can eliminate and make more consistent from round to round. So if you're doing one thing and it doesn't seem to be doing anything, well, it may not be doing anything for the conditions in the rifle you're using there, but doesn't mean that tool needs to be thrown out of the toolbox. You put it in your toolbox and you keep it, because there might be a day that you come into where conditions aren't great on the range. You got a high humidity, it's raining. You now all of a sudden that practice that you thought you had no use for now is actually what's pulling your groups back in tight. So there's little things that you will learn through reloading and through shooting. And always keep in mind, there may be a time when you have to use that particular skill again. All the things that you'll learn during reloading are important. Just absorb as much as you can and kind of keep everything relative. If you've got something that you're not using all the time, well, every once in a while, practice that skill anyways, because you may come across a day when you can actually use it.
Right. Yeah.
You got
And I'm
14
reading the
minutes.
comments. Yeah. There's a lot of comments out there. I totally understand, because I was, trust me, I'm in the same shoes, a few years ago, where I'm trying to make my production rifle and shoot as most accurate as possible. And here I am fighting all of these variables as a new reloader, or somebody that's just barely getting into it and just learning all this stuff. And that's what I'm sharing my experience. The best thing you could really do, and I'm not, I keep emphasizing this: buy a quality barrel, and then hand load, because you're not going to be fighting all of those variations. You can narrow it down. Like, for instance, one of those, like, I'll lose all my pieces of brass. Well, it's maybe just the rifle characteristic isn't shooting as well as you think. You may have quality brass, but you're still getting flyers. Well, that's the characteristic of the barrel and how it's produced, if it's a production rifle. But if you were to slap a barrel on there, or for instance, have somebody with a high quality barrel and try your piece of brass and see what it does for them, you'll see that it'll probably be, out of a batch of 100 or 500 rounds, you'll probably have about 5 pieces of brass you'll call out of the whole case. And that's been my experience with Starline. Lapua brass, it's a little bit more refined. I'm not sure how it is now with post-COVID production, but pre-COVID, or brass that I've collected has been spot on with Lapua and Peterson.
My Lapua actually, when I put it in the instant indicator, it actually shows 2,000ths below Sammy Min head bump, shoulder bump, right from the factory.
Right,
actually.
Right, exactly. And you do that on purpose. Yeah, that's perfect. So the chamber of your rifle is its headspace correctly, and so and it's hit and miss. That's why I tell folks, dude, if you can, just getting a go gauge, renting a go gauge from 4D Rentals, and checking out the chamber you have to see how much, what do they set your headspace at? You can get a piece of Scotch tape and put it right behind a go gauge, and if it locks down freely on your rifle, then put another piece of Scotch tape, and it better not freaking lock down. But if you're in between one piece of Scotch tape and 2 pieces of Scotch tape, then you're near maximum SAMI spec. So your brass is expanding quite a bit. And now you're trying to compensate your full-length size and die. So you're backing out your full-length size and die to let it to basically bump it back 2,000ths. But now the caveat to it now is that now your cartridge isn't fully gaining size. It is now your die is sitting up higher, and it's not sizing the web of your cartridge. So then you start getting more issues, and then you start getting your deviations higher again. So there's a lot of factors involved. The chamber really dictates exactly what kind of performance you're going to get downrange. And ideally, if you have a high velocity cartridge like 6.5 PRC, 6.5 Creedmoor, 6 Creedmoor, 243, 6 millimeter, all the 6 millimeter variances, you want to be towards near minimum. And two factors that help out on that is, for one, when you have a chamber that is set at minimum, for one, you're going to increase your throat life because now you have that much more throat to play with and burn out. And then two, your brass is not going to be worked as much, and you can go ahead and get the ultimate performance right away with the size of die you have.
I have a Michael says, what do you shoot? I used to have a Tika Tac 3 308 24-inch barrel. About $1,900 I paid for that thing. I sold it. I had a three something stealth, B stealth hunter. I can't remember the number now, but
the Savage 110 BA stealth. Yeah,
I had that one in 308. Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the MDT chassis. Yeah.
Yep.
I sold that one too.
So
right now all I have is 306.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people dog on Savage, man, but the common consensus is they just shoot. So
yeah.
Everybody that I talk to, yeah.
And this is not just something that has come up in the last 10 years. Savage rifles have been shooters, but since I was a kid. You would always, I had guys at the hunting camp when I was 7-8 years old. They would have their grandfather's Savage rifle, and the damn thing still half-minute of angle with factory ammo. And I'm not talking anything like match grade. I'm talking like Winchester silver tips. And in a 308 rifle that's been sitting, for the last 50 years, in and out of a gun safe, in and out of humid conditions, rain, sleet, snow, all this, and it's still a half-minute of angle rifle. And it's because you don't keep rifles in. I've noticed that I won't keep a rifle if it's not accurate. That's why I've got to shoot a Ruger Precision rifle right now. And it's an expensive rifle for a common folk, and I'm common folk. I don't build rifles for a living anymore. So it was expensive, and I really expected more out of that rifle. And that's why I have reloaded for it, and I've spent hundreds of dollars, at the very least. It's probably thousands, but hundreds of dollars to get that rifle to shoot better. And the one thing that improved the group on that rifle was going with decent brass, not expensive, just decent match grade Starline brass, and a factory crimp die from, or not a factory crimp die, a full length or a neck sizing collet die from Lee Precision, $23 die and some brass. And it basically shrunk my my standard deviations numbers from double digits to high single digits. And I'm hoping now that I'm just going to put a barrel on it and get the kind of performance that I should have from factory.
What time are you going to wrap this show up, Echo?
We're going to go ahead and we'll run it down right now since we're getting close to George's shooting time. I wanted to take time to thank each and every guest in the audience. I know we brought a lot of crew from Kenny's channel and from AR's channel over tonight, and I want to thank everyone for coming out. And if you like this sort of content, let us know in the comments section, and we will bring more of it to you. Kenny, as our guest, I'm going to go ahead and let you finish off on whatever you want, and then I'll let AR round us down tonight.
Oh, absolutely. The huge thanks again. This is the kind of stuff that, like I said, it's getting scarce, especially people my age and the younger generation. It's a dying art. And I really encourage anybody that you know of that has any slight interest or just wants to shoot and have fun to just get involved. And I know it's intimidating if you're new to reloading to come in on a live chat and you feel like you're going to ask a dumb question. Legitimately, there is no dumb questions on reloading. You're creating a controlled bomb in your hand So safety is the utmost importance when you're doing this. So you don't want to be doing this freaking under the influence of pills or whatever. So it's common sense reloading. So there is no dumb question. We're here to help. So if you have something that you're just confused of, or you need guidance on what to buy, these guys here on the panel, a lot of us here on the side chat have lots of experience. James Pollard, I've gained lots of experience from him. Uncle Jim, I could name that. 67 Rebel SST has been a live chat left and right, has dropped opinions and things that he's experienced as well. These guys is what makes this community very strong and will guide you to get you your goal. So, get involved. Don't be hesitant to ask any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Kenny. I really appreciate it, brother. And AR, why don't you go ahead and finish us up out of here, and anything you wanted to say as well, brother?
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate being on here. I enjoyed it as always. Thank you for the side chat. Great seeing you guys. Good to have you, Kenny. Good conversation. Absolutely. So you all have a good one. We're going to sign out here. Good night, all. Take care.
You guys have a good night. Thanks for coming by, and we will see you again really soon.